I feel like a broken record, but slow to adopt software and tech solutions. Come a long way, but have a long way to go. If we talk about digital tipping in a minute, I think I said it's like under 10% of hotels even have that ability, which is crazy. So definitely not adopting tech fast enough.
Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a special guest, Seth Kines, who has a lot of experience in hospitality. Seth, you're welcome to do a little introduction and talk a little bit more about what you've been up to.
Yeah. Hey, Art. Thanks for having me. We're mainly here to talk about Scarlet Connect, my software company that deals directly with hotels. I'm happy to talk about, everything else going on and background and kind of how we got to this point. Recently, I'm calling from Charleston, South Carolina, and it's freezing here. So that's what I've been dealing with recently. I think we're actually getting into the 20s tomorrow, and we're not accustomed to that. So got to go find my winter coat. But staying busy, first of the year, ending a year, then going into the first of the year is always a busy time. Yeah, just busy, and busy's good when you own your own company.
That is true. Well, I apologize that the winter has descended from Canada into US and you're having a lot of fun with it. Well, hopefully you're actually making good use of it in the sense of snowboarding or skiing.
Yeah. We haven't seen the white stuff yet, but when people in South Carolina say we're having a winter storm, you all would laugh at that because it's not the same winter storm that you would be accustomed to. Yeah, we'll just be spending a lot of time inside with the large heat bill.
We had a lot of snow. I mean, in a sense of up to your belt, probably,
Yeah,
in some
well,
places.
yeah, but I think we're just not equipped, especially like with ice in the roads. We just shut down and everything closes, and we don't know how to handle it. But to be fair to us, we're not equipped and don't get the accumulation like you guys do as often. So
It's a new experience. Let's just put it that way.
that's right.
How new experience is good. All right. So you mentioned you try to avoid cold unless you're wintering in Europe. How intentional has lifestyle been in the way that you've been building your career?
Yeah. So prior to COVID, I had a traditional job, like a lot of us did. I was the chief marketing officer for the Darla Moore Foundation, which is a very large nonprofit, focusing on travel, tourism, art, education in South Carolina and in New York. And when COVID hit, I was laid off along with the rest of the C-suite. And I actually loved that job because it was a really good hybrid setup. So the work-life balance was still great and it was still important. But I think COVID, reshaped a lot of that and the ability to work from home, and not only work from home, but show that people could be productive working from home, some even more productive working from home, right? And that's when I founded my first companies. And my first company is Scarlet Boom, which is a hotel sales company. So we focus on hotels all across America where we assist them in their sales efforts. So assist the on-site sales teams, help them book rooms and drive occupancy. And it was with that company, that I was working from home and was my own boss for the first time. And as that company continued to grow, I became more ingrained with these hotels day to day. And that's where this kind of, I know it's cliche, but aha moment hit me, where for Scarlet Connect, which is the software company. And I know a lot of industries can say this, but the hotel industry is so antiquated and outdated. And, I felt like every time I'm on the phone with an owner, I want to say, 1995 called. Okay. Like I'm not even trying to get them to I'm not even trying to get them to 2026. Can we just get like to the 2000s? And so much of it is products and tech that exist. It just hasn't been adopted into that industry, or adopted in a smart way. And so my background is hotels. I met my business partner and co-founder for Scarlet Connect, Patrick Stewart. He's a software guy, and we got together and formed this company. And really, where the overview of where the idea came from is hotels not utilizing software. A lot of software companies that exist weren't tailored to hotels. So maybe they were really tailored for other industries and thought, well, yeah, we could also sell to hotels, but it's a different landscape, just like every industry is. So I know we'll dive in a little more in a minute, but when that opportunity came up, it was the best learning experience of my life to found a software company. Since I joke with people and say, I don't know that I could have spelled software, 2 or 3 years ago, but I love to travel. And as a hotelier myself, I travel every chance I get. And now I can bundle in work with travel. And so, to your point, and to kind of come full circle on the cold, I always joke that I don't want to see, freezing temperatures or snow unless I'm wintering in Europe. And I try to go to Europe. I try to summer in Europe and winter in Europe. And I say that loosely because I'll go for like a week, but it sounds good. But when I'm there, I'm still working, and travel I think is the best experience in education any of us can do. I'm in an industry where there's hotels everywhere, and so I'm fortunate enough that I can travel and work. And even though I have two companies and a lot on my plate, I really feel fortunate that my work life balance is in a really really good place, and I don't take that for granted.
Yeah. You travel quite a bit. Does travel shape how you think about guest experience?
Yes. I think it always has. And as I've gotten progressed in my hotel career, I'm always looking for things like not in a let's get the front desk in trouble way, but when you work in the industry, in any industry, when you walk in, you notice, um, if things aren't quite right. So I'll look at two things. I'll notice maybe it's an encounter with a front desk person or with a housekeeper that's a great experience. And, I usually want to jot their name down because I'm like, maybe we could hire them someday, right? If it was a great experience. Or if it's negative experiences, I'll give talks at conferences a few times a year. And a lot of those negative and good positive experiences I'll use in some of my speeches because we can all learn from these things, right? And then obviously some of the good experiences I try to see. I'm fortunate where I have a sales company and a software company. So if I see a good idea or a good experience, are there ways I can incorporate that into one of my companies to help the overall guest experience? I'll tell you, I won't mention the city, but I was in a hotel recently because this is not going to be a good experience. I was in a hotel recently, and just in the bathroom, and the hotel was a higher end brand, and in the bathroom, they have just the regular soap that's in an individual package that we've all seen that lays on the sink. And I noticed when I picked the soap up, the soap said Econo Lodge, which is obviously a lower end brand, budget hotel, and should not have been the soap at where I'm staying. Now, at the end of the day, that soap is probably the same soap at any hotel. It's just packaged, right? And so this goes into branding. And so I thought, I'm just going to show this to the front desk. So I took the soap when I went out to happy hour that night, and I showed the front desk. I was like, hey, I was like, this is no big deal. I said, but this soap. And she looked at it and recognized it immediately. She said, oh yeah, was that on the sink? I said, yes. She said, yeah, that's our sink soap. And like my head's like exploding because it would be like, it wasn't these two hotels, but it would be like, you're staying at a Ritz-Carlton and the soap that was on the bathroom was branded for a Motel 6. Okay, it would be that level. And so, but the front desk, it didn't even like click with them. How did that get there? And so there's always training and teachable moments in those ways. But almost every time I stay, I find some story again that's either positive or negative that I can take away. And how did that happen? Or if it's positive, how can we replicate that? And internationally is a whole different ball game, especially with Europe. Cultures are different, expectations are different. I know we'll talk a little bit about digital tipping in a bit, but maybe what's expected out of a hotel in America is different than Europe and vice versa. And so it's not a one size fits all country to country, or even brand to brand, or even parts of the country in America to different parts of the country. And there's software solutions that can help level the playing field. But within those software solutions, that's where AI becomes really important, because then you can tailor some of these solutions to fit different cultures and different expectations and different
Exactly.
guest needs.
All right, so let's switch gears here a little bit. You own two companies, that's Scarlet Boom and Scarlet Connect. What problem were you trying to solve with that neither one alone could address?
Yeah, so Scarlet Boom's easy. That was my first company. When I was laid off because of COVID, every hotel salesperson pretty much was laid off because no one was traveling, right? So I saw an opportunity, and there's other companies like this that exist, but I saw an opportunity where I could reach out to some. Networking is so important, and what got me my first few clients with Scarlet Boom are some of my former bosses and some of my former companies I work for. And this is how this happened. I call, I'm out of work, I get laid off, so I'm thinking we got to figure out how to pay the mortgage, right? And so I called one of my old bosses, and all of her sales managers had been laid off. And I said, hey, I was like, do you have anything that I can help you do? Pay me $500 a month, like whatever. And she said, well, I do need sales help. I said, I can do it. She said, well, I know you can do it, but she said, you don't have a company, and my owner won't let me just hire an individual. She said, you need a company. And this is the story. I said, I'll have one by tomorrow. And I've never done this. So I went on LegalZoom that night. I'm like, do I create an LLC? I don't know what I'm doing. So I was like, just, you can figure that out later. Create an LLC for Scarlet Boom. Went on Squarespace, called a good girlfriend of mine. I was like, can you make a website? Like, it doesn't have to be anything. I just have to have this by tomorrow. And so I called my old boss back the next day, and I said, I have a company. I've got a tax ID number. Is that what you need? I was like, and she was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah. So that's how Scarlet Boom started, and we got our first client, and that was in 2020. And that same hotel is still with us today, and with the software company. But I mean, that's literally. I was doing a NPR interview, and the guy asked, he's like, "What was your business plan?" And I told him that story. I said, "So there was no plan." I said, the mortgage was due, and I didn't have a job, and we're in a pandemic, and so that's literally how the first company got started, and then it just spiraled and went from there.
Interesting. You said hotels were relying on too many one-offs, tech
Yeah.
vendors. What breaks when systems aren't unified?
Yeah. Well, so good question in two parts. What I meant by that was with Scarlet Connect, the software company, the reason we wanted to do this is we built out a platform with 7 different solutions. And what you were seeing in the industry, and you've kind of seen this evolve, like I mentioned at first, there were software companies that existed, major software companies that, as an afterthought, decided, oh, we can sell into hotels as well. They weren't very successful. These are very successful companies, but they weren't very successful when they started getting into hotels because the price point's different. The franchise model with hotels, you don't have the B2B sales opportunities that you do in other industries. So then what happened, you started seeing these one-off companies where they may be designed just for hotels with whatever solution they're offering, but that's all they have to sell you is one solution. And so where we saw the opportunity when we built Scarlet Connect is we can offer multiple solutions only for hotels and put it on one platform. And so what we've done successfully is, and we sell all of the solutions a la carte. So, you only want to purchase one of our solutions, that's fine, but that gets us in the door. And then, of course, it's our job to then cross sell and upsell once we're in. And then once you have 4 or 5 of our solutions, if you ever want to replace us, you're then going to have to go find 4 or 5 vendors, individual vendors or companies to hire to replace us for those solutions. So that's where the stickiness comes in. And the platforms like what we have, to the second part of your question, they're all integrated and they all go in together. So you're really relying on, this is a seamless platform, and we focus on the guest experience. So it's really about, we have a sales prospecting tool that tries to find the guest before they even know they're going to be a guest, all the way to welcoming them at the hotel through post-stay interviews, and then or post-stay surveys, and then when they leave their reviews, etc. And it's smart to put it on one. And then the final phase of that, you're starting to see a lot of consolidation. So a lot of those one-off companies, they kind of went as far as they could, and now they're being acquired by companies similar to Scarlet Connect to continue building out their suite of products. Because if you only have one product to sell, and these aren't really high price points, by the way, because people have to understand 80-something% of hotels are franchised. You might see a Hampton Inn by Hilton, but that's not a Hilton hotel. It's owned by, a small family or maybe a smaller management company. So these are price sensitive. And, when you have a platform, we have a lot of leverage and a lot of pricing power and things we can do with multiple solutions.
Excellent. Thank you for that pretty detailed explanation. Why did you choose to go deep into only hotels instead of expanding into other verticals?
That's all I know. Go with what you know. Hotels is my background, hotels and marketing. That's where my connections were. That's where my network is. As an industry expert, it was obvious for me to see the holes in hotels and what's missing and the opportunity. I've spent half my life, 20 years in and around the hotel industry. So I felt very comfortable with that. It was the logical place to go. And there was an obvious need of this type of tech platform. So really that wasn't a hard decision. It was, hotels and then go deep into hotels.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. You described Scarlet Connect as a guest-focused platform. What does guest-focused really mean operationally?
Yeah. So it's a guest engagement platform. So like I said, you can use Scarlet Connect from the sales side. So when sales managers are trying to find guests and groups and that kind of thing to book for the hotel, a lot of people recognize this type of software when you go check in a hotel and you get a text message that says, welcome to the Holiday Inn, whatever. That is something that we offer. And, then you engage with the front desk the entire time you're there with text messaging. To our point earlier, who picks up the phone and wants to make a phone call anymore, or who answers their phone when it rings, right? It's all about, we want to text now. And that's how guests want to communicate. That's how the world wants to communicate. People that aren't in the hotel industry, I think, would be shocked to learn what a low percentage of hotels that even offer guest messaging. We would all think this is just, what do you mean guests can't text you, right? And when I go to sell this, some of the hurdles are owners will tell me, we don't think the front desk would use it. And I always tell them, I say, well, they're standing behind the front desk texting their friends. They could be texting their guests, right? I mean, we all knows what goes on. And then you'll see, and I can look at some of our clients, but then you'll see that the automatic text will go out. The guest asks a question, and then the front desk just never acknowledges it, or they'll respond 3 days later. Well, now all you're doing is pissing the guest off, right? And so now you're creating a problem that ordinarily you wouldn't have. So when I go sell guest messaging, if I think I'm not trying to, I'm always going to try to make a sell, but when I go sell guest messaging, if the owner even thinks that their front desk may not use it, I'm like, don't get it, because all you're going to do is create problems. So obviously, this is where AI comes in. We've built AI into our guest messaging. So simple stuff, we can attach to the FAQ on the website, so it can answer questions that you get all the time. What time is check-in? Well, that doesn't change. Do you have a pool? Right? What are your restaurant hours? What time is checkout? On and on. So AI can handle that. There will always be a human component. I say always. I'm afraid to say that anymore. I think that will, for the most part, be a human component with messaging with guests, because they get into, I think, housekeeping stole an item from me, right? And I need someone to look into this, or can I get an early check-in? And some of those things are like, they have to be decisions made on the property based on what's going on with occupancy and housekeeping staff in that day, and some of those things as well. There can be a little bit of integration to help with those decisions, but AI is making guest messaging easier. What we as an industry are trying to change is the behavior on the staffing level, that we want guests communicating with guest messaging and not phone calls. Tell you this story. I was onboarding a resort, and we'd already made the sale, so this was just their onboarding. And the manager, I'm explaining, which I can't believe I have to explain benefits of like text messaging versus phone calls, but you do. And the manager said to me, he said, "Well, if guests start texting us," he said, "then I don't think they'll call the front desk as much anymore." I said, "Well, that was going to be my sales pitch. Like, that's right. They're not going to, and this is a good thing, right?" So there's that learning curve. A lot of this is generational too, and again, eventually this is just going to be across the board. But it's a hurdle for now, and even getting it in the hotels, and then mandating that the staff use it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see here. What part of the guest journey create the most friction for hotel staff today?
I think it's for hotel staff. It really depends on the type of hotel and the type of guest. For example, you have large groups that check in on weekends, like sports teams, or, gymnastics, or, wedding groups. They're usually, especially wedding groups or bachelor parties or bachelorette parties, they're usually pretty hard on housekeeping and front desk because of noise complaints, and they're bothering guests around them. Wedding guests, they want to check in early because their wedding is that night and they want to get ready. Totally understandable, but we can't check you in early until another guest is checked out. And sometimes people don't understand that. And so it depends on the type. Higher end hotels, guest expectations go up, as they should. They're paying premium to stay at a Ritz-Carlton or the St. Regis or a Park Hyatt. And, a lot of the frustration can really be taken away. There's a good story I always like to tell, and it was at a Ritz-Carlton, and this goes into expectation and just understanding what the guest wants, that can help reduce frustration. So, business traveler, high-end hotel, spending money is not an issue. He calls and orders room service. They bring up his room service, and it was $100 and something dollars. He signs it. He noticed at the bottom it said service fee, gratuity. We all expect that now, no big deal. And it said tray fee, $3, and that meant like the literal tray that they brought the food on.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so he doesn't say anything. Well, the next day he's walking through the lobby, and the front desk says, "Mr. Smith, how was everything going with your stay?" And he's very calm, and he says, "Everything was great." He said, "I ordered room service. It was great." He said, "But I thought it was a little tacky that there was a $3 tray fee, and because this is a higher end hotel, that they're just drilled in, give the guests what they want. I'm so sorry, Mr. Smith. We apologize. Let us take care of that room service charge for you." So they comped the entire room service charge, which was $130. Okay? Of course, he didn't say anything. He says, "All right, thanks." The end of the story goes, as he's leaving the next day, he runs into the manager. Same thing. "How was your stay?" Well, he tells the manager that story. And he said, "All I wanted was them to take off the $3 tray fee." Right. I didn't need, I wasn't he said, "I thought the $3 tray fee was ridiculous, but they comped that entire thing." There's a few lessons there, right? to be learned, and that goes into some of the frustration, and just understanding what guests want. Don't just jump to let's give you everything and make it right. All he wanted was the $3 tray fee taken off. I think that's an important story, and there's several lessons in that all industries could learn from.
Yeah, that's proper. I'd
Yeah,
love to have my almost services removed and actually be refunded for a hotel after I stay in, you know?
of course. Yeah, no worries.
All right, so the topic is training AI like an employee. You compare training AI to training a staff member. What does that process actually look like?
Yeah, great question. And this is something that I'm passionate about and learn and also a student of and learning. So, with our software solutions, they have an AI component. And as I said, each is different. Each one has their own needs and depending on the market and the type of hotel. So when we're doing onboardings and trainings, we want to really show the client, excuse me, how they can use AI in these solutions and how it'll make their life easier. So, from basic going in and giving AI prompts and commands, and you can get really specific on this, so if you leave a review on TripAdvisor, right, and it comes into our platform, there's a hotel gets slammed all the time because guests don't like their parking fee, for example. They can give it prompts and it says, if parking is mentioned, then say this. And the review will explain that the parking fee goes directly towards the security and safety of their guests and their valuables, or whatever they want to mention. And so what we try to teach them is, if you have reviews that constantly mention the same subject, we can handle that with AI, but you've got to teach the AI how to do this. And so in Scarlet Connect, we have an AI testing module that they can go in and previous reviews that they've had, through the last year and give test prompts, and then it'll and keep playing with that until it gives you the response you want for that type of review. And then you can save that in your platform. And so then it starts using it. But, you have to invest time. It's like any other software. It's only as good as, what you get out of it and what you put into it. And so these employees have to invest some time in learning how to teach the AI and knowing that it's always evolving. And when they first sign up for a solution, we have a base AI template and it's fine, but that may scratch 10% of the surface as opposed to them really getting in and training this AI. And you think of it, you brought this up, but you think of it like you're training an employee. I mean, that's what it is. And you don't sit down and do it for 20 minutes. This is evolving and you do it. And when you find more case studies and examples to look at, you just need to keep building on it. The AI is sharp, but it needs some direction. And so the more people that can grasp that, it's easy to say, oh, we use AI. Do you? And are you using it to its potential? And that's what we hope when hotels have Scarlet Connect, that they're really benefiting and using the entire platform as it's designed.
All right. What major shifts are you seeing in the hotel industry right now?
Well, we mentioned consolidation from a tech company standpoint. That's huge. From the guest experience side, from travelers, loyalty programs are huge. Just like you see the credit card battles, right? Everyone's fighting to get their customers. It's the
Yep.
same thing with hotels, Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, across the board. So they're constantly competing. I think a lot of these reward programs have been watered down. Look at airport lounges, right? You read about these all the time. This used to be you felt special going into an airport lounge. Now you stand in line for 2 hours and then go in for, a subpar looking buffet that just has some meat and cheese slapped on it. Um, so hotels have done a better job than that. But, best of both worlds now, you're finding that every major hotel brand, they've either bought independent brands or they've created their own. So like under Marriott, for example, it's called the Autograph Collection. Our Hilton has Curio Collection. And to me, they're best of both worlds because you're still staying at a Hilton or a Marriott or a Hyatt. And so there's some standards there, but these are all independent hotels. So you still get that boutique feel. You still get your loyalty points. You still get your bonuses or whatever. I think that's, a Hampton Inn's a Hampton Inn. But when you can stay at some of these boutique hotels, you're still getting your loyalty, but it's a hotel like you've never stayed at before. And that's a real big trend and has been for the last few years in the industry. But that's something that's definitely moving forward, and guests want that, especially the experience type guests and people that want experiences.
Thank you. Where do you think hotels are falling behind the fastest? Like in which area?
Yep. I feel like a broken record, but slow to adopt software and tech solutions come a long way, but have a long way to go. If we talk about digital tipping in a minute, I think I said it's like under 10% of hotels even have that ability, which is crazy. So definitely not adopting tech fast enough. I think there's some brands, and I won't go into this too much, but all of these brands, Hilton, Marriott, IHG, Hyatt, they have 15 to 30 sub brands underneath them. And you've heard of all of these. So, under Marriott, Courtyard, Fairfield Inn, on and on and on. I don't think the brands from a whole have done a really good job of educating the guest. Because if there's 20 brands under or 20 sub brands under a brand, these brands are very different, but they are all under one of the major flags, right? But each sub brand offers the guest a different type of stay, a different experience. Some are, you know, really high end hotels, some are budget friendly hotels. And I think the industry and the brands as a whole need to do a better job educating the guest. If you check into, a True by Hilton, this is what the expectations are. And it's very different than if you check into a Conrad by Hilton. Two very great products, but they're two very different products. And the guest should have the expectation that when they're checking into a certain type of hotel, that's what they're getting. And I put a lot of that on the brands as an education component. Of course, I would also hope that travelers educate themselves as well. But, some of that's out of our control.
Hopefully, next questions aren't going to be repetitive from before. Do you think hotels are keeping up with the how guests actually want to communicate?
No, to an extent. So, the premier way of communication now is, SMS through whatever, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's whatever. That's how we all communicate, or whether it's messaging through our favorite social channels, right? So that's where guest messaging and messaging with the guest is so important. That's becoming more and more of a adaptive solution. I am proud to say that several brands have mandated that, so it has to be used. I don't think the phone's ever going away, an actual phone at the front desk, but guests want to communicate without picking a phone up, and they want to do it as seamlessly and as quickly as possible. And I do think hotels are making some strides in that area.
Sounds good. All right. Let's see. What's working really well for hotels right now at the moment?
What's working well for hotels?
Yeah, right now at the moment.
Yeah, well, revenues are good, business is good. We had, of course, COVID was horrible. And then coming out of COVID for 2 to 3 years, we had what everyone called revenge travel. So people just wanted to get back out there and spend money and get out of the house and travel. So we started to see that wane a little bit. Experiences though are still up. People want to go. I mean, that's why you see, concert tickets are through the roof. Right? I think Delta talks about the majority of their revenues are coming from, first class and business class, right? So I mean, people are willing to spend money on experiences and on travel. And so that's a good thing. I think, the next step is now you got to deliver. So we have to make sure as hoteliers that we're putting out a good product. We have to make sure that we're meeting if the travelers are coming, that's great, but then we have to meet the expectations because we want the return trip, right? Or we want the referral. That's where we get into like review response and reputation management, making sure if you traveled and had a great experience, well, we need you to go get online and tell people how great it was. And reviews, when you go to TripAdvisor or Google, reviews are really for the next traveler, right? Because that's who's going to read your reviews, and that's your best marketing that doesn't cost anything. Is just how do you drive these positive reviews? We have a solution that we call reputation management that keeps negative reviews internal, so it keeps them off some of these major platforms, but it still tells the hotel, hey, this guest was upset with A, B, and C, because the hotel still needs to know if a guest was not happy, but they would like to keep it off the internet or off social media. So one of our solutions addresses that, and that's a big seller for us, and it's tangible because you can see your scores improving or not. So, travels are up, trends are up. I feel very, very good about the future of hospitality and hotels. I love these new brands and concepts that are coming out. Hotels now are going back. We had a time period like 80s, 90s, early 2000s where the hotel restaurant, you might say, I'm going to eat at or you would never say this, but the restaurant at the Hilton, you didn't even know if it had a name. It was just like whatever the restaurant was that you get free breakfast. Well, now, there's been a huge industry shift where food and beverage is a thing at these really nice and high-end hotels. And when you're in cities, the lobby bar at a hotel is going to be on your stop for one of the nights because they're iconic bars now, right? It's not just for hotel guests. And a lot of you're now having James James Beard award winning chefs and Michelin star chefs and restaurants that are hotel restaurants, but they have their own identity. They're branded separately, but that all goes back into the experience and what travelers, especially the new, the younger travelers, the Gen Zs of the world, and that are saying experiences are important to them, and so it's tailored to that, and so I'm very excited about that, and I think the future of the industry gets that, and it's going in the right direction.
Now, on the other hand, where do you things still feel unnecessary, manual, or frustrating?
How much time we have? There's with my sales company, it's still a large number of hotels. If you're getting married and you want a wedding block at a hotel, so all your guests can book at this hotel, you get a discount. You, as the wedding party, would do a contract with me to block off your 20 rooms. It's unbelievable the number of hotels that don't have a way to digitally send you that contract, and they want to send you a Microsoft Word document and ask you to print it off, go find a scanner and send it back. This is like, what? You know? And who's going to do that? Like, you're not doing that. I don't have a printer at home. You're not doing that. And so what happens, you've probably, as a potential person that's putting together a wedding, you've probably shopped 3 or 4 hotels. So the hotel that just sends you a DocuSign link or an e-signature link where you can just click it and be done, that's who's getting your business, right? And I could give so many examples of that. And again, people that don't know the industry, when they hear me say these things, it just sounds absurd. And like, you made a face when I said that because it's crazy. It's just, and it's not like this tech hasn't. Do we even still call that? That's so basic. It's not like that hasn't existed for 2 decades or whatever. But again, it's just some of that slow to adapt. And we've done it this way for 30 years. So why don't we just keep doing it that way?
It's like this joke, no, you cannot send fax here where we are. Like, where are you? We're in 2026,
Earth.
Jessica.
Right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. And it's great. And with both of my companies, we do internships. And so I have some college graduates and that are working. And, one called me or emailed one day and said, he's like, "Hey, do you know what this means?" And they were asking for a fax number. Well, this is a 22-year-old. He has no clue what a fax. He didn't know what and he was asking, he's like, "Do you know what this means?" And I think I said what you said. I said something about welcome to Earth. I probably said it a little more colorfully, but yes. But yeah, it's crazy. But that's such a one-off example, but there's a lot of frustration and a lot of anecdotes in that area that the hotel hasn't quite caught on yet.
I'm sure you can talk a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Let's talk about. Were we going to discuss digital tipping later? Because this is something else I can bring in now.
Basically, any shortcomings you see currently in the industry
Okay.
that can be
Yeah.
improved.
So, yeah. So, one thing that a product that we have that I'm very, very, very proud of and I feel very strongly about is digital tipping. And this is in such a small, under 10% percentage of hotels. And what I mean by digital tipping is, in the guest room, you have a QR code, you can scan it with your phone and tip the housekeeper or tip, the front desk agent. If you had a great experience at check-in, let's say your air conditioner wasn't working and the maintenance person had to come up and fix it and, they did a great job, you want to tip them. The breakfast attendant, in the morning, you can tip them. For a long time, we still carried this thing called cash, and we don't do that anymore. And actually, there's hotels now that on their front door it'll say that we're a cashless hotel or cashless property, so they don't even have cash as an option. Like, if you go to the bar to pay for a drink, you can't even pay with cash. So housekeepers have the toughest job, I think, in the industry. We all know what they have to deal with, and because no one has cash anymore, they're the ones that are going to get left out from a tip perspective. So that's the main thing that this digital tipping does, is it allows that for them. Valets, they were early adopters to this. So when they bring your car around, the valet, and you get it, they're quick to either show you their Venmo, which I'm happy to see because I want to leave a tip, right? So, how easy is that? You just Venmo $10 or whatever it is. Housekeepers you don't see and you don't have the interaction with. So you don't know if they have a Venmo or not. I stay in a hotel 100 nights a year, and I feel like that ass that when I'm checking out of the hotel, I have to like run to the elevator so the housekeeper doesn't see me because I'm embarrassed that I didn't have cash, so I didn't leave a tip. And so this digital tipping, I'm so proud of it, and I'm so excited to get it out there. It does several things. I think it goes without saying, but it boosts morale immensely with staff. If you're now allowing them to receive tips, if you're a housekeeper and work for, $10 an hour at this hotel, Hotel A, and they don't have a digital tipping service, and Hotel B next door pays the same $10 an hour, but they have a digital tipping service, you're going to work over there. I mean, why wouldn't you? So then it goes into retention. And we know that one of our biggest expenses is hiring and firing and training. And anything you can do to boost retention and keep retention, especially in a high turnover industry like hotels and a high turnover department like housekeeping, it's a no brainer. So I'm very excited about that. I think that's something that will start to be adopted in the hotel industry, especially in America. You know, this goes back to culture a little bit, where some countries don't have the tipping culture that we do, but of course they're paying maybe a different hourly wage. And there was a study that came out by a large hospitality university, and they said that your average hotel, so 120 rooms, your average hotel, that if they have digital tipping, their housekeeper will make $1.50 more per hour on average just by having that. And you know, that's something that the guests are paying for. That cost isn't being passed to the owners. You know, it's not coming off their bottom line. I mean, the guests are actually doing this, and it's a no-brainer. There's not a reason why, you know, that you shouldn't. Everyone should have this. So that's a big deal for me, and I'm proud that Scarlet Connect is getting into that space. We've been in it for a few months, but that's a big focus for us going into 2026.
Definitely have more questions. Give me a second. Let me just find
Yep.
those. Which operational metrics matter most to hoteliers today, and which ones get ignored?
Well, if you ask an owner or a management company, it's going to be the bottom line. Um, the brands, what's most important are the scores. Everything's about scores. A lot of staff's bonuses are about scores. And when I say scores, you know, I'm talking about your surveys and your reviews, and each department gets scored and graded. Those are the two bottom line revenue, you know, your revenue, what's coming in, and scores. And those are paid attention to because they're both financial and they both hit all of our pockets, right? So that's why they're paid attention to. Unfortunately, I think at certain hotels, what gets ignored are updates to properties that are desperately needed. We deal with a lot of properties that, you know, they'll have 15 rooms that are out of order, meaning they can't sell them for 3 or 4 months. Well, that's revenue that you're missing, right? Because you don't have these rooms to get in, but it's some short sightedness. I think with a lot of properties, we don't have as big of an emphasis on training and guest service as we used to. That's disappointing for me as a hotelier and as a traveler. When I walk in a hotel, I want to feel welcome, and I want to feel, you know, the hospitality, and this is why we're here, and you know, this is supposed to be a good experience. So I think training has gone down, and I don't know that it's intentional. I think, you know, COVID changed a lot of this because staffing levels changed and we had to put resources in other places. So you have to look what gets cut. And I just don't think, and you know, this is a high turnover industry. So, you know, there's nothing more frustrating than hiring someone and putting them through a 3 week, a month, pretty rigorous training program. And then they leave the next week. And then here we go, you hire someone else, right? So, but I do think we need to beef up training. I think there's a lot of opportunity with technology, AI, and training documents and things, because it's still a very manual process with training in this industry. So going back to kind of our original topic, that's something that I haven't seen. Of course, webinars have been around forever, right? But 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 really, there's a large hotel near me, and once a month they have all of their new hires sit through 2 days of training, and by the HR person. And again, some of that's needed because you're knocking out, you know, the handbook and policies and stuff, but actual training, you know, and you know, it's either not emphasized enough, or when it is, I think it's taken so much human capital to do it that it's wasteful of resources. So neglecting properties, training, and I don't know that we're back. I don't know that we're back pre-COVID levels for staffing.
Hmm.
You know, we found out we could get away with a lot during COVID. And so some of that behavior hasn't gone back. Like used to, maybe if a hotel had 2 people working the front desk, but for COVID, we had to get that down to one because of resources and everything. Well, we made it with that one person, so we can keep making it with that one person, right? So, and that's just an example, but you know, maybe during COVID, we didn't lay off all housekeepers, but the ones we kept, you're thankful you have a job, but now we need you to clean 11 rooms a day instead of 6. Has that trend continued, or did we bring back full staff, or did we end somewhere in the middle, right? So, you know, I think some of those things are still being neglected and will continue to be until something, you know, happens as far as someone's hands forced. And, you know, the brands, the brands mandate that these hotels have to update their product, every 5 to 7 years. So that takes care of a lot of it. But a lot of this stuff I'm talking about is more like deferred maintenance that when you're walking through a hotel and see some things now you wouldn't have seen years ago. And so, yeah, those are the things that I think are being overlooked or neglected that needs to have some eyes on that.
Okay. What are the most common issues hotel staff deal with that guests never see?
Good question. So, when a guest goes to check in, every hotel check in time will be 4 o'clock, right? Or 3 o'clock, whatever. But, it never fails. Every hotel in the world today, some guest showed up at 10 a.m., asked to check in, and were told check in's at 3. The majority of the time, like if the hotel just has a room that's ready, they'll check the guest in because who cares? But the guest doesn't understand that literally there may not be any available rooms, and they don't have to be until 4 o'clock that afternoon. Checkout might be noon, so the guests haven't even checked out yet, right? But the guest that wants to check in, they just see this big hotel, and of course you have a room for me. So that's a huge frustration that they don't understand how that works. The entitlement of guests that want their upgrade. I've never been that person, of course, but the entitlement of guests that want their upgrade, they don't understand that it may not be available, or that 3 people that checked in before you had a higher status than you, so they got the upgrade. Housekeeping is a big one. You know, Housekeepers, and think about this, and this is very relatable. Everyone can understand this. Housekeepers have to be right 100% of the time. I don't know anyone that's ever checked in their room and the room was spotless, and you pick up the phone and call the front desk and say, "Hey, my room is clean exactly how it should be." You've never done that. But you check in and you find a sock that was left behind the door, or you find, a shirt that was still hanging in a closet. You're on the phone immediately letting the front desk know that your room is still dirty. And what are they going to do about it? I don't think the guests realize how hard housekeeping has it. And that goes back into, maybe they don't realize that did the housekeeping department that day have 5 people call out? Is someone working 6 days in a row? And I mean, again, housekeepers have to be perfect. And that's such an example that people don't realize. Because, you miss one thing and they're going to get called out on it. So that's a big one. And I think, and this is a lot of industries, but I think staff burnout and understaffed. We show up with any job, but you don't know what someone's going through. And so we show up every day to check in or to go eat. And we expect that we're the first person that front desk has seen all day, or just they haven't they may have been cussed out 4 times before we got there. I mean, literally. And so it's like, everyone has an off day, but we guests don't know what goes on behind the scenes. With a lot of that stuff, even stuff as simple as, I have hotels that they may be in serious budget type situations, and so they're having to borrow or buy really, really cheap, it feels like sandpaper type towels to get through. Well, guests don't, it's not the front desk or housekeeping weren't making that decision, right? Someone way
Yeah.
above was making the decision. And so the guests just go, why? But again, they may not be good reasons, but there were reasons that decision was made that a guest would never know. But, I mean, maybe it was the hotel owner had to choose between meeting payroll or having the fluffy towel. I mean, it's things like that guests don't realize that go on behind the scenes.
Okay, now let's switch gears here into AI. When people in hospitality hear AI, what do you think they misunderstand?
A lot. I think AI is such a throwaway word now, and a phrase now. I joke. I watch usually all day if I have the TV on in the background. I watch the stock show, and with Nvidia and any company and AIs, and I always joke. I'm glad I don't play a drinking game to this, because if we took a drink every time the host mentioned AI or generative AI, we would all black out. And because it's like we have to mention it, right? Or we have to talk about AI. You know, um, People say AI, and because that is the buzzword, a lot of people have a very they can get on chat gpt and they can do the very basic, and so they use AI. And let's be fair, even myself, I own a software company that relies heavily on AI. I still feel like I'm in the first, a little beyond infancy, but in the first few innings of this game on what I'm capable of with AI, and even using AI to its, anywhere near its full capacity. I think we're in the early innings of AI still, and what this is going to look like. And as we continue to grow, I had a meeting this morning and we were talking about onboarding hotels and teaching them how to use, whatever solution they signed up for. And at the end, I do like a 5 minute, me or whoever the clients, whoever's training does like a 5 minute AI overview for that solution. And I always hang up because the first 25 minutes of that 30-minute meeting were more of the nuts and bolts of this is how you log in, add users, etc. And I always hang up and I'm like, we didn't even touch really we just scraped the AI surface for what they can use, right? And then I'll know they're not going to use AI in our solutions as much as they can or take advantage of it. But a lot of that goes back into developing training docs and using AI to actually help you, with some of these things. And so that kind of came up today. It's like I could do a training on each solution just on the AI component. Because a lot of our customers that operate hotels, they're not necessarily tech people or tech savvy, and some are, and a lot of it's generational. But you know, people that have worked the front desk for 30 years, which we have a lot of, I'm now trying to teach them how to use a software platform, which is new to them, and then explain there's this AI thing that none of us understand. And this is how you can use it to help make your job easier. And that's a big ask to do that. And on their end, I mean, it's a learning curve for everyone. So I'm fascinated by it. We've got a long way to go. It's come a long way. But what was the quote? I don't know if it was the NVIDIA CEO or someone recently said, "You shouldn't be worried that AI will take your job. You should be worried that the person that knows how to use
Yeah,
AI will take
that's
your job."
exactly it.
Was
Exactly.
that the quote? And so we as a company feel pressure on that because, someone's getting better every day on this stuff and learning and how to use it and adopt it. And how can we implement it into our solutions to make the user experience easier and more effective and more efficient and streamline operations at hotels and do all that. But then at the same time, you need the user it's our job to get it there, and then it's our job to make it as easy as possible for the user to understand. But then there is a learning curve coming from their side. And so, it's different when you're trying to sell AI into like large tech companies or things like that with AI solutions versus these types of industries where this is so foreign to them. Like I said, it was foreign to me completely until I started Scarlet Connect.
Okay. Where have you seen AI deliver real value versus just sounding impressive?
Yeah. In the hotel world, several ways. So, anticipating guest needs and guest response, that's huge because it saves actual manpower hours at the front desk. It's really been effective in what we call the back office. So, all the financials and things that go on to make a hotel run. And there's a lot of reconciliations that have to happen between all the different platforms and credit card processing and all the different platforms, TripAdvisor, Booking.com, Expedia. You can book reservations through all these platforms now. There's several pretty successful companies that have used AI really, really smartly in those ways that have done really well because it saves the GMs. A lot of their taglines will say, can save your GM up to 10 hours a week. That's really significant because then the general manager can focus on other areas, right? And so we've definitely seen really positive impacts in those areas from an AI perspective.
Okay. How do you decide when AI should respond versus a human needs to step in?
I think if there's any way that AI can handle the response, AI should be doing it. And let me say this, AI can always respond, even if it's, give us 1 minute while we look into this or however, while the human has to get involved. So AI can always respond. There's so many situations that are unique that again, I'm sure at some point AI, there'll be ways to do this, but you get a lot of unique situations with every industry, but with hotels that because this is so personal for people. I mean, people are coming to lay their head down there or spend their, they may get 1 or 2 weeks vacation a year, and this is where they're spending their money doing it. So they have a lot of personalization that they want with their stay, and they want to curate some of these stays, and that's why hotel concierge still exists, right? And so you know the basic questions, which the good news is the vast majority of the questions that are asked are the FAQs and the ones that happen over and over and over. AI can take that. So if nothing else, AI can handle a really large percentage of these requests. I mean, 80, 85%. So that's an amazing start if we're still starting in that. So it's a small percentage that I still believe you've got to have a human involved. And, when they call in and they want to, you know, their room wasn't clean. I want to know if I can get a refund. The manager needs to call me, those type things. A human's got to make the decision on if they're going to issue a refund, how much it's going to be. And a lot of that, so I know there could be like some things aggregated within that, but a lot of that is like the managers deciding that based off their budget for the month or where they are currently. And so, I mean, a lot of stuff goes into that. Someone's got to go inspect the room. Well, I mean, how big of a complaint is this, right? To justify a refund. So, there's still things that, I don't see AI, it can assist. We see examples where, like in the refund part of this, AI, of course, could say, you're authorized to refund you 10%, or we're authorized to issue, 20,000 loyalty points. And if the guest is happy with that, AI just solved that, we're done. But if the guest pushes back and is like, what's 10% off when we had this, our roof was leaking all night or whatever. So still there's some layers built in, if that makes sense, right? So to me, though, those type things aren't just an easy one off that, yeah, we can turn that over to AI. I think AI can assist, still filter out some until they get really, really escalated, which is still, shrinking the percentage of where you need human involvement. So of course, that's a real thing. And some of those are starting to be adopted. But yeah, that's how I feel about AI total replacement on some of the guest needs. I'll tell you this, and you may or may not know this. I started a job at a Hyatt Regency in 2013 as a man operations. And this is 2013. The week I started, they were removing, so they had a front desk and they had two self-service kiosks where you could just walk in, check yourself in. They were removing those kiosks in 2013 because guests would not use them. They didn't work. They worked. They didn't work how the guests didn't know how to use them. And then the guest would always want to have a conversation about room time, just about all these other things I'm talking about, right? At check-in, when you get some of these conversations, they ask, just where's your favorite restaurant? Like what, just from the front desk. And again, I know you can throw some of these things in, but I think that's interesting that 13 years ago we tried self kiosk, and as I was coming in the door, they were moving out the door. And now we've come a long way since then with technology, obviously AI, but this is a huge education curve on both staff and guest. So it's not just one sided. I was at a trade show recently and they had this was your front desk, but it was a screen. And when you walk into the hotel to check in, this person pops up, and this was a real person. This was not AI, but he actually does the whole thing, checks you in. It would spit out your room keys down here at the bottom, like a vending machine or whatever. You could ask him real questions. He was an actual front desk agent, but he was based centrally. So the idea is he could work 20 front desk at the same time, right? Because he's only there when someone needs him. I haven't seen one of those outside of a trade show, but I did see that at a trade show.
Why set up stuff which nobody uses?
Think it's I think some of these things come, but some of the, I mean, you should have seen it at the trade show looking at that. I thought it was cool, but most people were just walking by shaking their head. And a lot of it, they can't get there in their mind, right?
Yeah.
They can't envision that would ever happen. So I don't know, but I think, like I said, AI can handle a lot of this stuff, but I also think a lot of it will be the types of hotels. Your Four Seasons of the world and your Ritz Carltons. These guests want really personalized experiences and personal touch. And these are the hotels that they still do turn down service at night. You know what that is? Where they come in and put the slippers on each side of your bed and turn down the covers and leave the mint. I mean, like they still want that. Do you think Gen Z care? They don't know what that is or care about it. But they're also not staying at a Ritz Carlton. So you know
Yeah. All right. Why do hotels struggle so much with review management?
This is one that AI is really, really, really solving a problem. They struggle with it because if you think of every platform, I'm just going to list a few: TripAdvisor, Google, Expedia, Booking.com, Yelp, all the social medias, and then the actual brands, you can go and leave a review on how your stay was. How it exists today until Scarlet Connect released ours, we have the number one in the industry, and I feel very confident saying that review response system. We pull in all of the reviews from every single platform. Now that exists already. Other companies do that. Where ours is different, you can respond to all of the reviews within Scarlet Connect And so it pushes them back out to TripAdvisor, to Expedia, to Booking.com, etc. How it currently works, if you're a general manager at a hotel, every day when you get to work, you have to respond to reviews, you have to log in to all of those different platforms. I hope you remember your password. By the way, you leave, the new GM comes in next week. They don't know those passwords. So you have to respond. I mean, you have to log into every single one of those platforms and respond to these reviews. We've brought that in, which again, other companies have brought them in. We're the only company right now that can push the review back out so you don't have to go log in anywhere else. And that's our top seller. And then as part of that, AI can generate the response for you. That's where the AI prompts come in. If the review mentions this, then say this. It's a huge, huge, huge time saver for the hotels that are responding to these. People that haven't grasped AI, they're like, "Oh, we don't want a robot responding to our review." We spent a segment on this, but you can truly train this AI to understand your brand voice and your property voice. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's why this is teachable, and you keep working with it, and you keep working with it, and so, and with ours, of course, it generates an AI response. You can edit it if you. And what we find is usually about 90% of the response. If it's a response they're not totally happy with, vast majority of the responses they can scan it, make sure it's good, hit publish, and we're done. If they want to change any part of it, usually what we find is they end up keeping 90% of the response of the AI generated response, and then they just change like one sentence that they wanted to word differently. So you can edit the entire thing. You also could just hit regenerate a response. So it just brings up a totally different one that you might like better. But at the end of the day, we have a really large company, and they're a services company. And you would hire them as a hotel to manually respond to your reviews. That company uses our platform now, and they've said that it has increased their efficiency by like 86%. And they're able to respond to so many more reviews. And it's just a no-brainer. That's probably the easiest way, when you brought up reputation management and review management, of how AI can really solve a problem and give GMs and hotel operators a percentage of their week back.
Yeah, we can talk about it for hours because I've seen those solutions deployed and they're really not even 86%. I mean, some of the efficiencies, they go up into hundreds of percent.
Yep. Well, the problem, you're 100% right. With this particular company, they're trying to. They've had SOPs with humans and services for 15 years, so they're still figuring out. I think their efficiency will be way up once they figure out everything it can do for them. That's just the quote we've been given so far, but it'll just improve, right? Their SOPs weren't built with any AI components back when, so now they're redoing how they operate using a software platform, and all that will do, to your point, is just keep increasing efficiency.
All right, where do you want to be in 6 to 12 months from now, health solution wise?
Yeah. So from a company standpoint, where we have some large things going on this year, some exciting moves that I would like to talk about, but I can't. But we've got a few pretty major things that we're working on, and I think will be announced in late first quarter. We're looking to pass 2,000 hotels on our platform 2026, which is a big milestone for us. The second part of the year, we have two new solutions that we're looking to roll out. Both are very heavy into AI, and it's things we've thought about for a while. And the second half of the year, the timing's right to roll those out. And then we're at a really good place now with Scarlet Connect. And so the next kind of phase for us is several of our solutions. It's time to now, how do we take those to the next level and continue enhancing those? That's always an ongoing thing. But, we grew so rapidly the last 8 months, we had to reset to focus on that growth and making sure we could handle the number of clients and onboarding and hiring to keep up with growth, that some of our innovation had to, which you never want to do, but had to sit here for a second, because we were landing some large deals, right? So now we're back to a really good place where that's all been taken care of. We can really get back to the founders, Patrick and myself, can really get back to what's next, whether it's major enhancements on a certain solution, or, like I said, the two other solutions that we're looking at. I can say this just without specifics. We're currently in talks for an acquisition that we're looking to make that would, I think, be a game changer, and offer a solution that we believe strongly in. So we're hoping to get that across the finish line in the next few months. But yeah, we're excited. this will be our. It's already the projections. This will be by far our best year yet, and the momentum is really strong right now. So we want to keep that up. Okay, perfect. All right, we'll send that out, and I enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week.
Excellent. Likewise. I'll see you next week.
All right, thank you.
All right. Enjoy your weekend. Bye bye.